In our world, the echoes of Rome are everywhere, in our laws, our languages, our architecture. But what if those echoes weren't just remnants of a fallen empire, but the living pulse of a global superpower? Imagine standing in the heart of New York City, not under the stars and stripes, but beneath the Aquila standard. Picture Roman legions, not in chainmail, but in advanced combat gear, patrolling global borders. This is a world where the sun never set on the Roman Empire, a reality shaped by 2 millennia of uninterrupted Roman dominance. A world that could have been, had history taken a single, different turn. In our timeline, the year 476 AD marks a symbolic, yet profound, turning point. Romulus Augustulus, the last Western Roman emperor, was deposed by the Germanic chieftain Odoacer. This event is often cited as the official end of the Western Roman Empire, concluding a saga that had spanned over 1,000 years. While the Eastern Roman Empire, or Byzantium, would continue for another millennium, the heart of the Latin West had ceased to beat as an imperial power, leaving a vacuum that would reshape Europe for centuries to come. The collapse of the Western Roman Empire wasn't a sudden event, but the culmination of centuries of decline. By the 5th century, the empire was a shadow of its former self, plagued by an array of internal weaknesses. Economic instability, fueled by overspending, inflation, and a shrinking tax base, eroded its foundations. Political corruption and constant infighting among emperors and generals weakened central authority, diverting crucial resources and attention from pressing external threats. This internal decay left Rome vulnerable, a giant struggling to stand under its own weight. Compounding Rome's internal struggles were relentless external pressures. Waves of Germanic tribes, Visigoths, Vandals, Ostrogoths, and others, displaced by the Huns, sought new lands within Roman territory. These migrations often turned into invasions, challenging Rome's overstretched frontiers. The Roman military, once the most formidable force in the world, was increasingly reliant on barbarian federates, whose loyalty was often fleeting. The Battle of Adrianople in 378 AD, where a Roman army was annihilated by Visigoths, epitomized this shift, demonstrating that Rome was no longer invincible against the very forces it had once so easily subdued. Our point of divergence centers on 451 AD, a year etched in history for the Battle of the Catalaunian Plains. Here, the Roman general Aetius, often called the last of the Romans, allied with Visigoths, decisively defeated Attila's Huns. In our timeline, Attila merely retreated, regrouped, and continued to menace the empire. But what if Aetius' victory had been more complete? What if, instead of just repelling Attila, Aetius had utterly crushed the Hunnish threat, eliminating it as a cohesive force? This decisive outcome prevents Attila's subsequent invasion of Italy and destabilization of the region, granting the Western Empire a desperately needed reprieve. With the Hunnish threat definitively neutralized and Aetius' prestige at an all-time high, our timeline sees a crucial shift. Instead of being assassinated by Emperor Valentinian III in 454 AD, Aetius uses his unparalleled influence and a strengthened hand to implement comprehensive reforms. He secures a more stable alliance with the Visigoths, integrating them as loyal federates rather than potential adversaries. Economically, Aetius, perhaps with a more effective imperial council, initiates a rigorous tax reform, curbing corruption and ensuring consistent revenue. This renewed stability allows Rome to re-establish control over Gaul and parts of Hispania, consolidating rather than losing territory. The Roman military undergoes a critical transformation. Learning from past failures, the empire shifts from static border defenses to more mobile and versatile forces. Legions are re-equipped and rigorously trained, focusing on rapid deployment and combined arms tactics, much like the successful units of the earlier Principate. The integration of Germanic federates continues, but under stricter Roman command and cultural assimilation. This new military structure is less about conquest and more about defense in depth, projection of power, and swift response to threats, ensuring Roman borders remain secure against future migrations and incursions. Politically, the empire adapts. While the emperor remains the supreme authority, a stronger, more representative Senate emerges. This Senate, increasingly comprised of provincial elites and even assimilated Germanic chieftains, acts as a check on imperial power, preventing the unchecked despotism that often plagued later Roman emperors. The vast empire slowly begins to decentralize administration, granting greater autonomy to provinces while maintaining a unified legal and military framework. This federalized structure fosters loyalty and efficiency, transforming a sprawling, overstretched empire into a resilient, adaptive state capable of managing its immense territory. In this alternate timeline, the traditional Dark Ages of Europe simply don't occur. Roman infrastructure, education, and legal systems persist and evolve. Cities continue to thrive as centers of commerce and learning, albeit with gradual transformations rather than collapse. Latin remains the lingua franca for administration and scholarship across much of the former Western Empire, though regional Romance languages still develop. The constant threat of barbarian incursions is mitigated, allowing for continued stability and a more gradual, organic cultural synthesis, rather than the sharp regression seen in our history. Innovation and trade continue, albeit at a measured pace. The geopolitical map of Europe is radically different. Instead of numerous warring kingdoms, Roman authority ensures a broader peace. Germanic groups are either fully assimilated or exist as autonomous but loyal federates on the empire's periphery. The concept of nation-states, as we know them, would likely be delayed or even altogether absent, replaced by a complex network of Roman provinces and client states. This overarching Roman stability likely prevents many of the conflicts that shaped our medieval period, from the 100 Years' War to the feudal fragmentation of Central Europe. A unified continent under Roman law fosters unique cultural expressions. Christianity's trajectory would also be profoundly altered. While still dominant, the Great Schism between Eastern and Western Christianity, which occurred in 1054 AD in our timeline, might never happen, or at least take a very different form. A unified Roman Empire would likely mean a more unified church, with the Patriarch of Rome perhaps holding sway over both East and West, albeit with local autonomies. The Crusades, as we know them, might not occur, or would be directed by a unified imperial church complex, potentially leading to a different outcome for the Holy Land. Religious tolerance, a Roman trait, might also see a more diverse array of faiths persist within the empire. The unbroken continuity of Roman governance and education means that much of the classical knowledge lost in our Dark Ages is preserved and built upon. Roman engineering, mathematics, and philosophy continue to advance without interruption. Rather than a rediscovery of ancient texts in the Renaissance, there's a continuous line of intellectual development. This might lead to earlier innovations in areas like mechanics, sanitation, and urban planning. While not necessarily an immediate leap to industrialization, this sustained intellectual environment would lay crucial groundwork for scientific revolutions that occur much earlier than in our timeline, fostering a culture of continuous inquiry. By the late medieval period, the Roman Empire, a master of cartography and shipbuilding, would inevitably turn its gaze westward across the Atlantic. Driven by the search for new trade routes, resources, and perhaps even a sense of imperial destiny, Roman explorers, rather than Portuguese or Spanish ones, would likely discover the Americas. With centuries of advanced navigation techniques and imperial logistics at their disposal, these expeditions would be well-resourced. The Mediterranean, still a Roman lake, would have served as a crucible for developing the maritime technology necessary for transoceanic voyages. Roman colonization of the Americas would proceed with a distinct imperial character. Instead of outright extermination or purely exploitative resource extraction, the Roman approach might emphasize assimilation and integration, though often brutally enforced. Indigenous populations would face a stark choice: adopt Roman language, law, and perhaps religion, or resist and face the formidable Roman legions. Vast new provinces, like Nova Roma or Occidentalis, would be established, bringing new resources and peoples into the imperial fold. This expansion would dramatically swell the empire's population and economic might, solidifying its global dominance. With an unbroken chain of technological development and a vast, unified economic market, the Roman Empire would be uniquely positioned for an industrial revolution. Their long-standing engineering prowess, combined with the need to manage immense resources from across